Hello everybody, and it is Joey's Videos. And today we are going to be telling a bunch of scary stories, spooky scary stories, to drift you off to sleep really well. You could listen to these while you read, or really anything while you relax, and especially while you sleep. For a disclaimer, I just wouldn't, if you have nightmares easily, I suggest you don't listen to this before you sleep. Because, they may not be that scary to some people, but some people get nightmares too easily. And I do not want anybody having nightmares because of this. So we can move forward but just sit there and sleep or relax, drink your tea/coffee, read you a nice book, and stay scared, y'all. But we're going to move on to our stories about summer. They're not specifically stories about people in summer or anything. They're just mostly just summer stories. Not anything really about summer, just mostly about stuff during summer, and it's just because it's coming up summer, so I'll be telling a bunch of different stories. None of them will be graphic, none of them will be inappropriate, so all you parents out there who kids like to listen to scary stories while they sleep, don't gotta worry. But let's move on and stay scared while watching this video. I am a 16-year-old girl, and I do not have a really good life. My parents don't really treat me that well, but they don't treat anything really that well since they're too buried in their Jack Daniels to really care. So I figured that I could just go out and do anything I ever really wanted. And one night, I was just walking down this street, and I felt like I had eyes on me, and I felt like someone was watching me. And I didn't know what to do in this moment. I just figured to keep walking forward. Little did I know I'd have a horrible, horrible surprise waiting for me. So as I walked down the road, I saw that it started to sprinkle a little bit and pick up rain. I didn't really think too much about it. Just the fact that it might start storming because I could hear thunder off in the distance. But other than that, I felt like the eyes on me had wore off, and I was fine. I didn't have anything to worry about. But it was hitting around 10, and I figured I should be getting home. Not that my parents would be worried sick or anything, just mostly the fact that I have school tomorrow, and I need to get to bed pretty dang early. Even though 10 might not be early for some people, but for me, 12 is early. So 10 is pretty dang early. I felt those eyes on me again, and as I was walking by the pub, I felt it really strongly. And then, as I passed the pub, I saw this broke-down car with a man sitting beside it. As I walked by, I saw him look at me, and he was like, "Hey girl, got any smokes?" As being a 16-year-old, I didn't smoke. I didn't have any cigarettes on me, and I didn't smoke at all. Smoking is bad, and I never wanted to ever pick it up. So I just said no really politely and just walked on by. But then he started following. "Hey girl, got any leftover beer?" I never had any beer on me, so I wonder why he said leftover. And I never drank in my life. Drinking is also bad, and I never plan on picking that up. I know I may seem like a juvenile delinquent, but I only go out without asking my parents because they don't really care. And if anything, they need to be locked up in jail. Just so that you know, kids, alcohol is bad. Never do it. And any time that I mention it in this story, don't think that it was a good thing. It's really bad. But I just wanted to let everybody know what this guy was really on about. He had a really short black-haired cut, tattoos all over his body. He was wearing a wife beater and some short jean shorts. And I didn't think anything of it, but he looks like a guy who kind of escaped prison. He had some stubble on his face, but except for that, nothing else really. And I didn't really think anything of it, even though he kept following me, and I kind of got creeped out, but I didn't figure that anything was wrong. I just figured he wanted to talk, so I turned around and I asked him what he needed. "Oh, nothing, I just wanted to talk," he said in a weird, deep voice. And then I started to get a little freaked out as he put his hand on my shoulder. "So, girl, want to come back to my house?" I didn't even know this guy. I freaked out, and I had pepper spray, but I didn't want to use it unless it was a big emergency. I don't want to use any weapon unless I know I really need it. So I ran off, and I heard him chasing me. And I kept sprinting and sprinting and sprinting until I finally made it to my house. And about a half a mile there, I heard him stop following me. I would have never known what happened that night if he caught me. It could have ended really, really bad if he did. I am an older 34-year-old man who lives on the side of Wisconsin, but a little bit lower to where I live in near Milwaukee. I have a respectful girlfriend who treats all their elders with respect and will hustle to the door if she sees an elderly person sitting there trying to get to the door. She'll help any person who is a little too short to get to the top item on the store shelf. Anyway, one day me and her were out there driving, and then we see these two guys. And it looked like one of them was checking her out. And I was just thinking, alright, oh well. And I kept driving, and nothing really happened that night. But when we got home, I heard a knock on the door. It was pretty late at night, like 4, so I was really confused. And I opened it. I saw the same dude from earlier that was checking her out. And I just asked him, "Hey, why are you here? Can I help you?" And he pulled out a gun and he said, "Give me everything you own." And I was in shock about this. And I sprinted upstairs, and I heard him walking soon as I was running right behind me. Wasn't necessarily following me, but when I ran, he stepped into the house. And I ran and sprinted to my room faster than I thought I ever had before. When I got into our room, I told my wife what was happening, and I told her to hide in the closet as I grabbed my Glock 19 and loaded it. And I went downstairs, and as soon as I walked into the living room, I didn't see him anywhere. I walked into the kitchen, I didn't see him there. And when I was walking by the washer and dryer, I thought I saw something crouching near a space in between the washer and dryer. We had a little space in between, and it looked like there was something crouched there. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh. He's crouched right there. And I saw the figure stand up. And I knew exactly who it was. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier, but I sprinted straight to the phone, dialed 911, told him my situation, my address. But he was chasing me. He heard what I was doing, and he wasn't having any of that. So he knew that if I was going to call the cops, then I would be the one getting shot for it. So I was terrified of the fact that he would catch up to me. But I felt like he was kind of stupid. He never pulled out his gun and shot at me once. But he did have his gun in his hand, and he was following me like a freaking psycho serial killer from a slasher movie. But with a gun instead of a knife, machete, or anything else you'd imagine Jason or any of those slashers with. I ran with my wife, and we jumped out the window. I saw the figure finally pull out his gun and start shooting at us, which I should stop calling him the figure, because we knew exactly who it was. That guy must have followed us home. I hopped in my car and drove off with my wife, and me and her drove so far, we probably went out of the border of Wisconsin, and we finally got a call back from the police telling us that they had been there, and they had found nothing, and they needed us to come back there to see if we found anything stolen. And when we came back, nothing was stolen. I honestly think he wanted to do something worse, like hurt us or take my wife or something. But I'm just afraid that they'll come back. I used to live and work in the same place. I was homeless for the longest time, and I lived right near McDonald's, the place I worked. But I think I'm so stupid now for what I spend all the money on my paychecks on. See, I was working at minimum wage in Ohio, specifically Columbus. And I remember the traffic was heavy, and it was just too expensive to live around here. Like, too expensive to even rent. And that's bad. I just lived right outside the building, and nobody knew. I would always make sure I'm up on time for work. And I spent all the money I got on my paychecks just buying stupid little trinkets like Pokemon cards and stuff. But one time I saved up for a fake Gucci watch, which was fake, but it was still around like $500, which is the normal price of some Gucci items, and I just really should have bought those. But I'm not here to talk about these designer brands. I'm here to talk about after a few years when I decided to man up and actually move and get a house. So after I moved away from Columbus and went to a smaller town, I got so much more cheaper places and the places available to rent. Well, when I finally made deals with the landlord and I finally got inside the house, moved in and everything, I started noticing a little bit of weird sounds, like when I'm laying there upstairs, I would hear footsteps. And I'd rush up there to go see what had happened, just in case somebody broke in. But I didn't ever find anything. I wondered for a long time what that walking was, until one day I looked in the mirror and saw behind me one of the most terrifying things I'd ever saw. What I saw wasn't terrifying, but at the same time it kind of was. So why it wasn't terrifying is because what I saw behind me wasn't really that scary looking, but it was definitely something paranormal and not something that robbed me, because I know that nobody had broken in, even though I looked all over the house afterwards. It was an older woman, and that's all I could say it was. But it was terrifying because it was a ghost. Or at least I think it was something paranormal. But outside, I would always hear screams. So I searched the web and looked all around to see what this kind of thing was. And after digging enough, I found out that it was probably most likely a banshee, a woman ghost who just screams. And I found this really scary. So I decided to move out and rent a different house. This house was fine, it had nothing wrong with it. And I live fine now, and I finally got me a girlfriend. And me and her are planning to get married because I just engaged to her, so she's my fiance. And me and her are planning to get married soon, have a kid, and she has a little bit more money than I do, so we could actually afford to buy a house now. I think it's such a blessing, but I just needed to share the story of that one house. I knew a friend. His name was Vince. He was a guy who moved from Italy about a few years ago, and his mom and dad were both from Italy. He was Italian, but he learned how to speak the English language pretty well. And he could speak a few different languages too. He could speak Italian, English, Spanish, and Chinese. And I really thought it was cool. But he was a little weird to other girls. He was one of those guys who thought he was cool with the girls, and every girl liked him, but he really had no chance of getting a girlfriend. And not to assault him or be rude to him either way, but he was a little weird. Not to me or my best friend Lily until a few years later. See, I am in middle school. I'm a 7th grader, and I am 14 years old. Been held back once, and I feel like my life is going a weird way. With puberty and stuff, yeah, but also the fact just the way my life has been going for just these last few months with a few bit of depressing moments that could have made me depressed for the rest of my life. He one day kinda asked me out on a date, Vince did. And I politely rejected him and made it clear that our relationship was a friendly relationship and not a lovey-dovey relationship. But clearly he didn't get that message. So a few weeks later, I told Lily about it, and she was just like, he did that to me too. And I was really confused at this part, because he asked both of us out. And just a day after, he walked up to me and her, and he wolf whistled at us, and we asked him what the heck was that for. And he was just like, I don't know. I just thought you guys looked pretty today. And me and Lily looked at each other like, this guy's a freaking psychopath. Who are we being friends with? And me and her told him again that our relationship is a friend relationship and nowhere ever being close to a love relationship. He's deep inside the friend zone and not even close to where the relationship zone is. But he never ever could really got that message, and I don't really ever think he knew what no meant when somebody said it to him. We told him no several times, and one day he just broke down. He said he loved us, me and Lily, both of us, and I was so confused and weirded out. And at the beginning of the school year, he was a normal dude, but in the middle of the school year, he was obsessive, and he asked me to go to his house one time, and me and Lily were thinking, no, but it could be a chance to get information to see if he's doing this to any other girl. Talk to her about it. Well, when we went there, I had to sprint away of what I saw when me and him went to his room. There were pictures of me and Lily while we were sleeping in our beds, not even knowing they were being taken. Other times, they were when we didn't even know and we weren't even in school. He stalked both me and Lily. And there was a picture of me that was just taken yesterday with me and my mom going to the mall. And I sprinted out. I didn't even say anything to him. And as soon as I got to my phone, I texted in Lily's number so quickly. And I told her everything of what I saw. She was freaked out. And we texted him to let him know our relationship was over. Our friend relationship. Every single bit of it was over. And we never wanted to talk to him again. And he asked if he could fix this in any way. And we both said no to him. And he seemed very acceptant of it. But when he was at school, he would tell everybody how me and Lily dated him just to break his heart. Even though me and her never even said we would date him. We told him several times that it was just a friend-only relationship. And I don't know what his deal was, but he ended up moving a few years later. And I felt like he needed some real help, because we told him no. And I never think he knew what no meant. And he never took no for an answer. So just be careful, guys, because you never know what kind of creeper / stalker or any bad person could do and be doing when you don't even know it. In 1939, a woman by the name of Talia Simpson was caught missing. Nobody could find her anywhere they looked, and this was in the middle of Italy, and the Italian police could not find her, whatever they did. And later, they said they spotted her with a guy, and they could not find her. anywhere. But that guy was found later in 1941, and he was questioned by the police. But he knew nothing about it, as he said. But they knew he had something to do with it, as many, many witnesses saw him and Talia hanging down there in the woods. And the police forced it out of him, and eventually he broke down crying, saying when he walked out of the woods that when he turned around to say something to her, she was gone, and he looked all around the woods for her. The cops didn't believe this one bit, but they let him go out of custody just to think about what he said and look for clues in what he said. In 1943, they found more evidence about her and found her DNA near some trees. And when they looked all around there, they could not find anything about Talia, and they could not find Talia. She was nowhere to be found still, but when they did find some evidence of her that was for surely evidence, like a finger bone of Talia, they did realize that Talia may not have made it out alive of whatever had happened to her. In 1945, the police almost dropped the situation, but little did they know, they were so close to figuring out what happened. It was pretty dang horrifying. And finally, the guy told the police what had happened to Talia. He had brought her down to the woods and had a picnic with her until they saw a bear walking by. Talia got up. She really loved animals, and she thought she knew how to take care of a bear and not disturb it and make it mad. Tried to give it some of its food. It got really, really mad about that and attacked Talia, killing her. And he was almost going to be arrested for not telling the police what happened originally, and Tom was set free just 1 year later because they realized that that wasn't true and they needed more information from him. The police in 1945 again found more information about her and where her whereabouts were. In 1946, they finally found her mangled body at the end of a lake and at the bottom of it. And apparently, he had not lied the first time. She seemed to be mangled by some really long claws, and it was fatal. She didn't live too long to feel anything. Talia's case was finally solved in 1946, and her whereabouts were unknown. And Thomas was put in prison and released in 1972. At this age, he was 85, and now he is dead. But the police still see it as a mystery of what it was that mangled her. They just take Thomas's story and believe it, and just believe it was a bear. I have been stalked for the last few years without even knowing it, but not by a human. And I know that sounds so cliche, but you have to believe me. They say a story can only be passed on by telling it to another person. And when it is told to a different person, it gets worse. And it's apparently been told about 15 times to people. But it could just be a lie that Steve told me. And it has been stalking me forever. So these last few days, I've been laying in bed, and I look right across into my window, and I see something watching me, and it looks like a bear, but you can tell it's not a bear. I don't know what it is, but one day it tried to come into my house, and it smashed a window. I was terrified, and I ran into my living room and grabbed a cross off of my wall and pointed it at the creature, and it disappeared. I want you guys to be careful tonight. I know that was short, but I want you guys to be so careful tonight because I just told you guys and I just passed it on. I'm so sorry. I work for a calling company, but I won't tell you which one for safety reasons for me and the rest of the people that did work there. I work at a call center, let's just say, that helps people with subscriptions such as like Netflix subscriptions or HBO Max subscriptions. And if they have a problem with their subscriptions, as in if they've paid, let's say, their Hulu subscription, but still ain't getting Hulu. I work there, but I'm not going to tell you the name of the company because I want everybody to be safe. Well, one day I was just sitting there as normal, and then I got a call. I picked it up and asked them what the problem was with their subscription, and I heard silence on the other end. I said hello again, thinking it was one of those times that you call somebody or somebody calls you and you say hello and they're saying hello, but you can't hear them say hello. So I said hello again. I still heard nothing. And I said hello, is anyone there for the final time? And I still heard nothing. So I hung up and tried the call again, thinking maybe that might help. And somebody picked up and I said hello, you called earlier about some subscription and your call didn't go right. And I finally heard a voice say, "Oh, sorry about that. I didn't really mean for that to happen. I guess my phone mic was on mute." And so I was just like, "Oh, no worries, it's okay. Now what did you call about?" And he said, "Oh yeah, my Hulu subscription has gone really, really wrong." And I asked him, "How? What happened? And did you pay your bill?" And he snapped at this. "Well, yes, I paid my bill. If I didn't pay my bill, it would not be working the way it should." And I said, "Calm down, sir. And also, if it's working the way it should, you shouldn't be calling here." And this made him even more mad. "You do not question me. You just help me, or I'll go to your house and murder everything you love." And I took this as a serious threat, and I told him, "Sir, you need to calm down before I hang up on you and report you to services to make sure you can never call back here." And I just heard silence on the other end. And I said, "Now, sir, that you've calmed down, what's your problem with your Hulu subscription?" And I heard nothing. I said, "Sir, are you prank calling? Because this isn't the right place to be prank calling. Okay? This is for calling services, and you shouldn't be calling. This is a prank call." And he just said, "No, sorry. I just get a little snappy sometimes." "You're fine, sir. As long as you didn't mean that, it's okay." And he said something that sent shivers down my spine. "Can't make any promises, lady." That terrified me. And I was pretty dang scared at that point, thinking that this guy might be a little messed up in the head and I need to report him to police. But I shouldn't be that worried because he doesn't know where I live, right? Right? And then he just randomly says, "You must be having a good hair day. You look pretty today." And I was just thinking it was him trying to be friendly, so I laughed, kind of blushed, and I told him thank you. And he said, "I love the way your bangs look." And I got a little confused here. Maybe it wasn't a lucky guess? No, it was probably just a lucky guess. And he said, "I love how you have them dyed red, blue, and yellow." This freaked me out. I looked all around to see maybe if it was somebody playing a trick on me, but I didn't know. Or maybe it was something more surreal, and they were actually watching me being a creep. But I didn't see anybody. I didn't see anybody through the windows or anything. So this had me actually pretty scared. And I just couldn't shake it out of my mind for the rest of the day. It turns out he didn't have a problem with his HBO or Hulu, because after I forgot to tell you, I'm so sorry I mentioned HBO, but he told me later that he had a problem with his HBO Max, And I asked him, okay, what about the Hulu? And he asked me, what Hulu? But it turns out he didn't have a problem with HBO Max or Hulu. And he was trying to call GameStop. But I don't believe that was happening because I told him what we were there for, and he snapped about it. So he must have knew what we were for. He must have just not took it so seriously. Later, I saw somebody was calling, and I picked it up. I responded with my normal, "Hello, how can I help you?" And I heard the same voice again. He wolf whistled at me. And I was really confused. But I knew who it was, and I told him to stop messing with me because this is not for compliments. You can compliment me, but you can't be a little weird like that. And he got kind of mad, and he said, "Well, you know what, little girl? I can make compliments to whoever I want, and they're going to take it, whether they're happy or not." Here, I was just taken back by this response. So confused about why he just snapped like that. "Now you listen here. You're going to help me with my Hulu subscription. It isn't working. I just paid the bill yesterday. And I'm working on its $1 for 3-month deal. But that isn't working. So you're going to help." His voice turned to a scratchy, creepy guy to a young teenager. An intelligent one, too. "And you're going to help me pay for it. Do you hear me?" He had a little country accent after a while, and I figured this was just a prank call, and I hung up. And he called back later, and I picked it up, and I just said, "If this is any more prank calls, I'm about to block this number." And he said, "You're going to help me with my HBO subscription." And I said, "I thought it was Hulu." And he said, "They're the same thing. They're a streaming service." And I was just thinking, sir, they're not the same thing. Do you have a problem with your HBO Max, Hulu, or both? I have a problem with my Netflix, and you're going to help me. That was about it. I wasn't dealing with that anymore. That's a whole different streaming service. And he just told me the $1 for 3-month thing, which is only a Hulu thing. So he must have saw an ad about it, which the $1 for 3-month thing is an actual Hulu. And if you don't believe me, you can go to look it up or something, do whatever to see. That is a real deal he was trying to look for, even though I don't believe he was actually looking for it. Later he called back, and I just hung up, and I blocked the number. And I didn't have problems with him since, until one day I saw somebody following me when I was going to my car. I turned around and asked him what he needed, and what he said next terrified me. Not because whatever he said, well, it was also kind of what he said, but the voice, it was the exact same one from the calls. "I thought you were going to help me with my HBO Max service, woman." And I instantly pulled out my pepper spray and aimed it at him. I said, "If you come any closer, someone's eyes are going to be full of pepper spray." And he said, "Woman, you touch me with that pepper spray, and I will hang you by your arms and your legs and beat you until you help me with my HBO service." I told him, and I said, "I could get somebody to help you with your HBO service, but you're being a freaking creep about it." This made him mad, and he walked up to me. As soon as I was trying to shoot my pepper spray, he grabbed my hand and he said something so terrifying that I don't want to repeat it. I'm not going to repeat it. But he did say something else that I will repeat. He said, "I will grab you by the back of your neck. I will smash your head against a wall until you promise to help me with my Hulu subscription purchase for $1 for 3 months." And I was just terrified. This man had me under his grasp. He had my pepper spray, and there's nothing I could do. There was no witnesses. It was really dark. I was just horrified the fact that what he might do to me. And I told him I'll help him with his HBO Max service, Hulu service, and Netflix service if that's what he needed and wouldn't hurt me. And he said, very well. And he told me and showed me on his phone. Turns out he never even tried to get Hulu. He just wanted to scare the heck out of a woman. So I called the cops, and they never found him. This sent shivers down my spine, the fact that he isn't found, and he knows exactly where I work. I quit right after, though, so he doesn't know where I work anymore. I'm just really, really glad that I haven't had any more experience with him. I just hope I never see him again. Ever. I moved back home with my dad because I felt like the way I was being treated by my wife was horrible. Me and her ain't divorced or anything, but we just aren't working out. It's like I live somewhere else, but me and her are still married, and we still have a great relationship, and we still have a good time together. We are still in love, but she was a little bit like bossy, and she expected me to basically bow down to her like she was a freaking god. But I did not feel like I was going to deal with that kind of relationship, so I decided I wasn't going to live with her like that. Well, one night she kind of went a little crazy when I said, I feel like me and you probably need to get a divorce, after a big argument we had about who's going to keep the new baby that we had. I wanted the baby, but it was hers, she argued. She said how she was being the one carrying it, and I said I couldn't carry it if I had a choice, because I'm a male, duh. And she said, well, I think he should live with me, and I feel like that if he lives with you, he'll basically be put through hell. I told her how bossy she was, and that argument led to me saying that we need a divorce, like I said. And this kind of turned her crazy. And she said, what? After the baby is coming? Are you really expecting me to divorce you? And I said, yeah. I mean, after all you've put me through, you don't expect me to try to get rid of you or anything? And she just got really upset, and she started bawling. And I told her, you can have the baby, because you really wanted the baby. And she broke down, and she said she'd been working on herself, been personally trained. How could I believe that? Who personally trains a woman not to be so thinking she's a god? See, she never said that she thinks she's a god, but she expects you to basically bow down to her feet and do anything she tells you to, and act like it's a freaking holy ceremony. Not really, not that. But she just expects you to do everything you say, and she's so bossy, and she'll get really mad if you don't do exactly what she says. And if you do it wrong, she'll yell at you to do it again. I just feel like it's a bad relationship and all, and that's why I wanted a divorce. I hated how she treated me, but she said she had done better. She had got a new job, and she felt like it would be better if I moved in, so I tried to move in with her again. But she was still acting like she was all godlike, so I left and told her we were getting a divorce, whether she liked it or not. And this turned her into a state of psychotic thoughts. She kept telling me how she would kill my family if I didn't stay, which my dad could hold that 5'7" woman off pretty dang easily. She was 120 pounds and 5'7", which is kind of taller, but still pretty dang short compared to my 7-foot dad. And if he had to, he would take her down without any problem, and there should be no problems needed. But she still threatened how she would shoot my dog and just a bunch of crazy things like that. And I told her no, she wouldn't, because I would make sure that that doesn't happen. And my dad would take care of it if he needed to with his shotgun. So later that night when I went back to my parents' house, I heard a knock on the door. When I opened it, it was my wife with a freaking axe in her hand. She swung it straight at my dad and hit him straight in the arm. which my dad was right behind me. Why did she not hit me? My dad was right behind me, and she didn't even swing at me because I'm the one who answered the door. That's just stupid, I thought. And she took it out, and he ran right to his room where his gun was. She swung at me, but she nearly missed my face, swashing it straight into the side of the door. I tried to make a go for it, but she grabbed it back in time and kicked me straight in my genital area, which kind of made me fall back. She kicked me pretty hard, and she grabbed the axe and tried to hit me again. And she did. She actually landed straight on my calf, which it pretty hurt. Pretty dang bad. And as I was bleeding, my dad ran out with his gun, cocked the handle back, and aimed it at her. And they just stared at each other for a while. I didn't know what I was going to do. This was crazy. My wife and my dad were about to freaking kill each other. And I never thought that this would happen. And then my wife suddenly sprinted at him with the axe raised. He had no other choice but to pull the trigger. She didn't even survive a second. It killed her straight on impact. It sent her flying back next to where I was. But she was mangled. He hit her straight in the upper torso. Even one bullet creasing right where her chin was, blowing her chin to pieces. She was dead. And that's how I got so mad at my dad. I yelled at him, and I didn't blame him though. But I wasn't mad that he killed my wife. I was mad at the fact that that baby's dead. And it makes me upset. And I'm sorry I stumbled a few times during the sentence, because it just brings me back to how my baby and my wife died. But my dad had nothing to do with it, and it wasn't his fault. So just be careful, guys. I'm sorry. I had to tell you that crazy story, but I just had to let it off my chest. Hello, guys. Those were some crazy stories that I just made up off the spot just now, and they were pretty good, I thought. Thank you for listening, and just thank you for, just falling asleep to this. And I'm going to come out with more of these scary stories here soon. If you like them, you can listen to more of them when they come out. Just leave a like and let me know. And, just, if you're relaxed, I hope you just got really relaxed from that. And it's been Joey's Videos here / Creeper. And when I make my music for now, I'm just letting you guys know this. Right now, it's going to be called Creeper on its own separate YouTube channel. I don't have anything posted, so when you type in Creeper, nothing's going to pop up. The name hasn't even been changed yet. It's just my normal name. And, so you're not going to see anything on there, but I'm going to get changed to Creeper, and we're going to have an album coming out like next year probably. I'm working on it right now. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed those stories, and have a great night. And like I said, stay scared. Goodbye. See you on the next horror.